Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you a brand new podcast called the Life Sciences Today podcast. This is going to be an extension of the Healthcare IT Today network of publications. We've had so much demand for life sciences, so many people that want to talk about what's happening in life sciences, how to engage patients, and many other topics using data, real world data in life sciences that we decided, hey, let's go all in and let's launch a podcast called Life Sciences Today. And we're excited here. We have Danny Lieberman. He's going to be host of the Life Sciences Today podcast. Welcome, Danny.
Well, John, thanks for having me. It's an exciting moment for me to start this podcast.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We kind of met serendipitously on LinkedIn, and I saw you putting out some great life sciences content. You sold your company, and you're in a place where you're ready to do some of this. And we were really excited to be able to partner with you and do this. But for those that aren't familiar with you, Danny, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in life sciences.
Sure. My name is Danny Lieberman. I've been a tech entrepreneur for a long time. I'm a physicist by training. I work for Intel and some Israeli big tech companies. And for actually 8 years ago, I started a clinical data in the cloud company called Flask Data. Um, and we had a good deal of success specializing in connected medical devices, digital therapeutics. We did drugs, supplements, and of course, a lot of connected devices and digital applications. We did 5 FDA in 5 years. We collected over 10 million signals and over 70 clinical trials. And we had some actually outstanding success with some of our customers in the neurology space, which is a very difficult space to achieve patient compliance. We actually achieved over 90% patient compliance in 13 neurology trials, which is
Wow.
pretty sensational. And one of our customers actually set a world record for de novo approval from first patient
Wow.
into de novo in 9 months.
That's awesome. What a
Yeah.
record to hold. That's amazing. And I love the background, right? I love that you've had experience in the space and you've worked on a number of clinical trials. I'm excited to work with you. This is why we're happy to bring you on board to do the Life Sciences Today podcast. I'll be doing some episodes as well. I'll probably focus on stuff that's a little different than you since you have more background in life sciences. But I'd love to hear more about, like, why are you passionate about what's happening with life sciences today?
I'm passionate, John, about life sciences today for really two reasons. The first reason is that the people in this space are phenomenally gifted, talented people tackling really probably the most complex problems outside of cold fusion that we have. And the second reason is that this is just an incredibly complex space with many, many, many challenges. And a lot of those challenges are not really addressed very well. And they're not addressed very well for all kinds of reasons. Some of them are, people like to say, oh, it's bureaucracy and regulation. And I tend to think that regulation and bureaucracy is kind of an excuse not to solve certain problems. Just like at home, you don't like, no one likes to wash dishes. So there's a lot of mundane problems in clinical trials and drug research, which we don't want to solve because no one likes washing dishes, and it doesn't look good for a VC. So.
That's a great analogy. I love that. It's true, right? And hopefully the technology aspect, which of course will be a large focus of the Life Sciences Today podcast, since it's on Healthcare IT Today, technology can hopefully do the dishes, if you will, to use your analogy, for a lot of organizations and help to make the dishes much easier to accomplish. we're going to be covering a lot of different areas in life sciences. I think, I'll probably host some episodes as well as you. What do you see as some of the goals and expectations for Life Sciences Today podcast? For those that don't know, you also have a Substack, so we'll be sharing it on your Substack. People should check that out, and we'll also be sharing it on Healthcare IT Today. But what do you see as some of the goals and expectations for the podcast?
Goals, I think, are first of all to introduce our audience to outstanding people doing outstanding things with technology for drug development and connected devices. That's number one. So I think the first angle, the first part is really important to have people know other people, because I think sort of there's kind of like this, which I believe is incorrect, this kind of thing that you can talk about companies in kind of an abstract way without talking about the founders or the people who are in the trenches developing the technology. So I think that the founders and the people on the team who are developing the technology and deploying the technology, I think that's a really, really important story to tell. That's number one. Number two is that there's just so many opportunities right now with AI-driven technology to improve things. And I think that with all of the sex appeal that there is with drug discovery, and I'm not, by any chance knocking that, but I think with all of that, I think that there's a huge amount of opportunity in improving the process and using AI to improve the process. And I think that until now, people have kind of been well, there's no way to change the process. The process is what it is. Well, my thinking the past year has been that we don't need to change the human process, but we can actually automate that with AI agents. And I think that that's where the industry will be going. I think it's hard for people to see that future, but one of my goals for the podcast is to show people the future where we're not asking people to change the way they develop drugs, but we're going to say that a lot of the drudge work that's being done today that takes up so much time and causes so many problems downstream, these can be done by AI agents who do the same job day in, day out, and they don't leave the project in the middle. They don't leave the project in the middle of the data analysis, and they don't have all kinds of issues related to processing Word documents in 7,000 different versions. So that's my vision. So I'm talking about really kind of process reengineering without actually reengineering the process itself, replacing individual workers. That's my vision, and I think that a lot of people that are in the industry today honestly want things to be better. I have not met anyone that honestly says, "Well, let's just do things." So I love technology.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't think that, yeah, you're right. I don't think that happens at all. I think what's interesting, Danny, is that I think we're going to get overwhelmed with people that want to be part of the podcast because there is so much content to share. Even just in the few weeks we've been working together and talking about this and planning for this, we've already seen a number of them with zero solicitation that we're like, that would be a great guest. I think what's going to be interesting is, to start, we're shooting to kind of do a once a week podcast. We'll see how that flows. We'll see if we can keep up with that pace. We'll see if we have to go faster, and if there's bandwidth to be able to do that. Because I think there are so many stories to tell. So it's going to be interesting for us. The challenge I think we're going to have is curating who are we going to have as guests, who are we not, and similar to Healthcare IT Today, where we have some sponsored options that can give people priority as a guest. We'll have some of those options as well, but with great content, that are just promoted extra as sponsored episodes. I think that's going to be interesting, to evaluate as well. But, I think the goal to start out with is the cadence will kind of be once a week and shoot for that. I'm sure occasionally we'll miss a week if, life happens for all of us. But, I think that's the goal initially. And then over time, we may do other similar things like we did with Healthcare IT Today. I could see us having a bonus features on Healthcare IT Today where we do mentions about different people who were who moved between companies and highlighting different customer sales that happen or other studies that are done by companies in the space. We could do that bonus features for Life Sciences Today as well. We may even do our quote alert, which we do on Healthcare IT Today, where we solicit quotes from people, so it's more written content rather than audio. So we'll see. We're starting off with the podcast. podcast weekly, and then we'll see how it grows over time, and what people are interested in. Definitely let us know in the comments on the various platforms or on social media what you think. But I think that's kind of where we're going with this as far as a cadence.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. And I've been writing my Substack newsletter for I think this week will be week number 80. I have not missed a week. My family knows that I am not to be disturbed on Friday mornings, and and
That's awesome.
you kind of have to be very committed and kind of very crazy to do that. But my I think a weekly cadence is perfect. The advantage of that, I think, is that you get into this cadence and you just do it every week, so it's
Yep.
becomes a habit.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think there's so many guests. We won't have any problem there. I think it will actually be choosing which ones. But what are some of the types of guests that you want to have on the Life Sciences Today podcast, Danny? What are you kind of looking for? Where do you think we'll start the focus? And we'll evolve it over time, I'm sure. But where do you want to start guest wise?
Well, of course, because the focus is technology, I would I would start with founders who are doing interesting technology. And when I say interesting as a tech person, I say slightly different from what everyone is talking about. And and as a founder, also maybe doing things their way and going against the stream. And being a founder is very hard mentally and physically. And when you're doing something that's against the stream, that's even harder. But it also makes you stand out. And this is the kind of person I would like to help stand out because they're a founder and they're going against the stream and they're doing innovative technology, which they believe in. Let's help them. Let's get them out there. And if their idea is really good, let's put it out there and see if it lives and breathes and it helps people. I think there was so much opportunity to talk about AI. I know people are really interested in AI, and I think there's so many different aspects of application of AI agents into the drug development process that we can look at. I think it's almost like just no limit of applications there. I think some of them are really interesting, and others maybe even a bit crazy. But I think that's something which I think readers will want to know about. A third area which I would like to kind of hint at least, which is that the world has changed in the past few years. And it's not just AI, it's just the whole idea of me and you being able to share ideas and to do things together without ever having exchanged a business card because we don't have business cards anymore. And I think that this notion of sharing instead of controlling access is extremely powerful. And when I look at my personal some of my personal objectives for the podcast, I would like to emphasize the necessity of being able to share without boundaries. And being able, and not just from a marketing perspective, because a marketing perspective, everyone wants to share, but also, share like this founder who has a different idea. He's going upstream, he's kind of growing upstream, he's working really hard, or she. And this is the kind of sharing that I'd like to see more of. I'd like people to say there's no boundaries anymore. You don't have to be promoting or selling, but if you have a really good idea, if you're working really hard at something, there's no reason we shouldn't let our readers and listeners be able to tap into that idea and into the technology you're developing.
Yeah, I love that. Some other areas that I think will be interesting and I'd love to explore as well is along with the kind of the founders is maybe some of the big companies that are working in the space, whether it's the Amazon AWS that's powering a lot of the AI solutions that can help life sciences, or Dell Technologies doing something similar, or even the data providers like LexisNexis that do data, or Komodo Health, companies like that are obviously doing a lot of things in a lot of different industries, but are providing a lot of the tools tools that can be used by life sciences organizations. Oracle Health, another big one, right? That does a ton of work in life sciences. I'd love to hear, what are they seeing? What are their customers doing with the technology that they have or with the data that they have to improve the process? So I could see us covering a lot of those kind of more enterprise players as well, and how they're helping life science organizations be more effective at the stuff they're doing. So anyway, those are a few other areas that I think we'll explore, throughout the podcast as well. Are there some areas that we don't plan to cover on the podcast? For me, I heard someone describe life sciences as dry versus wet, and I thought that was a good division. We're going to be doing the dry, the digital stuff. We're not really going to do the lab stuff, the wet stuff, if you will, as much. I think there's other people that are more expert at that. They can do that. But how do you see it? Are there some other areas that you're like, yeah, I don't think we're going to go there, probably?
Oh, I really love that. I never thought about that, dry versus wet. So I think, first of all, that's the first place we need to draw a line so that if you see someone who's doing, like, I don't know, laboratory automation, which is really interesting, a big part of tech for life sciences, I'm not sure that we need to go there, because that's already kind of on the wet side.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I'm sure we're
uh,
going to be forced into it a little because the dry bridges to the wet a little bit. And I think in some cases we may cover a little bit of that when the dry, right, the digital will inform the lab side. I think that makes sense. But yeah, I think we'll probably stop there.
I think a place which I'd like to see just a little bit, but not too much, is this whole thing about patient centricity. And until I think the American elections, presidential elections, I think that this was a very big part of the way many people felt about recruiting patients to clinical trials. And I think that in the past few years, this has gotten very politicized. And I mean, to the point where, a colleague of mine on LinkedIn, he said that he was invited to a panel at one of the big conferences, not him, one of the big, life science conferences,
Mhm.
talking about diversity and patient recruitment. And out of a panel of 10 people, he was the only white person. So it's like, you can swing in either direction, but I think it's important. I would be very careful not to get into places where I felt that the person was more on the political side as opposed to the scientific side. And there's been a lot of, unfortunately, people say, well, we need to do this because it's just the right thing to do. That's correct, but it's the right thing to do from a scientific perspective, not from a political perspective. And
Yeah.
if you take it as an example, say breast cancer. So breast cancer is an incredibly important area. And oncology is like 40% of everything happening in clinical trials today. And breast cancer is a big piece of that. And breast cancer is highly racial and ethnic dependent. And that's not a political question. That's
Mhm.
a fact that
That's
Hispanic
science.
women, yeah, so, at sites, and women, think about the women, right? So the Hispanic women have different rates and different issues than say, let's say, Eastern European women. And Eastern European women have a different kind of rate, frequency of occurrence than women who are, say, of Indian descent or in Israel, Bedouin descent. So some of this is related to standard of care and access to care. That's true. But some of it's just basically scientific. It's related to the biology, the way women's bodies are susceptible or not more susceptible. And that's the kind of place where I think that it would be really fascinating to dig into that at, one or two and say, well, let's look scientific or political. We always want to think about scientific because at the end of the day, we want something that's right for the patient, not something that's right for the NIH or the NHS in the UK or the FDA. It's about the patient. And that's what I think. When I think of patient centricity, what's right for the patient, get that drug out there to the patients who need it the most in the best possible way. Not because we were doing something that looked really good on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, I thought that I think that's a perfect description too of where we want to be, which is let's talk about health equity, but let's talk about health equity and the care that can be provided equitably from a scientific perspective rather than a political perspective, which I think is the right way to approach it because it matters, right? Like you've illustrated perfectly. You know, your ethnic background, your family background, et cetera, you know, it influences the science. And let's talk about it in that way. And also how we collect it. How are we collecting the data to be able to do the science? I think those are topics that are very reasonable and worth discussing without the politics, as you kind of mentioned. Like, let's talk about it from a scientific standpoint. I love that, Danny. Well, we're going to have
Yeah.
a zillion topics we could talk about. I think that's going to be the challenge on our end. You know, we'd love to hear from people and hear what they think. You know, obviously don't inundate us too quickly. We already have some guests lined up, but we're definitely interested in who we can connect with, you know, to make this a great asset for the life sciences community. As far as where people can find it, you're going to be able to find it on healthcareittoday.com. We'll have it hosted there weekly. You know, you can like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting channels. We'll push it all to the major ones: iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be doing video and audio like we've done with the other podcasts on Healthcare IT Today. So you can watch the video, you can listen to the audio, you can subscribe to the podcast. And then also Danny's going to share it on his Substack. So be sure to check out Danny's Substack and subscribe to his weekly newsletter. Danny, you might have to go to twice a week, once for your regular and once for the podcast, huh? So
Yeah.
people will get more content that way.
I'm up to it. I'll have to tell my family it's Friday, not only Fridays, it's Tuesdays. Okay. Also,
Well, hopefully your family doesn't mind. And then the nice thing with the podcast is you can schedule them in advance. But no, Danny, this is awesome. We're excited to see where this goes. You know, we've had so many people you know, reach out to Healthcare IT Today saying we should do more with life sciences, and here we go. We're off and running. So thanks, Danny, for doing this. And I was excited to host the first episode. Danny will probably host most of them, but I'll hop in here occasionally as well. So thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great Life Sciences Today information, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com. Thanks, Danny.
thank you, John, for having me.